What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for being with us today. This is the Deviance Welcome Podcast, brought to you by Volatile Patience. I'm Jon, and with me, as always, my co-host, Cel. Say hi to the people, Cel.
Hi, the people.
Fantastic. Today, we're talking to you about climate change.
Oh, just coming straight out with it. Huh?
Straight out with it.
Just rip it out.
Yeah,
there.
because I don't have time to be nice about this shit. We do not have time to be fucking nice about climate change anymore.
No, we don't.
The time for, I don't believe in climate change. Or what was the one you mentioned? Oh, the ice sheet will just melt back together.
Oh, yeah. That one.
We don't have time for your dumb shit, okay? I don't have time for this. We're talking about fucking climate change.
So why are we talking about climate change, John? What is it that provoked this particular topic this week?
I asked you what you wanted to do, and you suggested this.
For being like really like how the sausage is made.
Yeah. No,
and it wasn't so much what I wanted to do. It was like, hey, what's going on?
Right.
And I was like, well, the big thing that I'm hearing about right now is the new IPCC report.
Yep. For those of you who don't know, we just looked it up. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released another report very recently about where we stand on climate change. And guess what? It's bad.
Yeah.
We're fucked.
And also, just a little aside thing, this report was actually supposed to come out back in April, but couldn't because of COVID.
Yep.
So we're getting the report later than they wanted to send it out, and then they were at that time saying it's bad. Right. So just so that we're keeping score of how much time we're losing here.
Right. We don't have a lot of time at all. I don't know what that clock in New York says, but I know that it's not good.
The doomsday clock?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last I checked, it was somewhere in the area of like 7 years and change. So we're probably at 6 years and change now.
Probably.
Something like that. Anyway, some of the key points that we have is from this report is global surface temperature was 1.09 degrees Celsius higher in the decade between 2011 to 2020 than 1850 to 1900. 1 degree Celsius higher. For those of you who want to try and tell us that this isn't actually a thing, we have numbers for you. We have proof, right?
And keep in mind, like with something like that, 1 degree Celsius doesn't sound like a lot, but that is a global average.
Right.
That is you are taking all of the increased hotter temperatures from hotter temperature areas. They are getting hotter. And the colder temperature areas are not getting colder enough to balance it out.
Right.
We're in Michigan. We have some pretty crazy fucking wild seasonal swings where we can have hot-ass summers and cold-ass winters,
yep.
Right? But at the end of the day, what it comes out to in the math is that if we were to take Michigan as a representation of the whole world, we're still looking at 1 degree higher. Now, that, again, may not sound like a whole lot.
1 degree Celsius.
1 degree Celsius. So we're talking about, like, what is it, 1.32 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. But the big thing on that is that what we are really talking about here isn't so much where that affects us on the surface. Where that really matters is the ocean.
Right.
If the ocean is going up a full degree or more or less or whatever, right? But it's going up. It's the one we didn't get the last couple of years we didn't get a dramatic rise in air temperature because the ocean was absorbing most of that heat.
Right.
So when we're talking about that, we're talking about massive die-offs of coral, which are like where a bunch of fucking where a lot of the starting point of ocean life starts. Exactly. As far as like the food chain.
Yeah.
The food chain starts at these coral beds.
Right.
And if the coral beds are dead or dying, the rest of the food chain dies.
Absolutely.
Do you like tuna? Do you want to continue to be able to eat tuna?
Right.
We need to fix this so you can continue to eat tuna. I love calamari. You know what I mean? Like, cephalopods are smart-ass animals, and we probably shouldn't be eating them, ethically speaking, but they're fucking delicious.
Right.
Right? I want to be able to keep eating cephalopod despite my moral my moral like reservations about doing so.
Absolutely.
Because it's yummy.
Because it's yummy. Now let's see. The past 5 years have been the hottest on record since 1850. In case you don't notice that the globe is getting hotter, why don't you ask the people in Arizona? I just saw, what are they, 115 or something like that? Like, I was looking at fucking video of the garbage cans they have melting on the goddamn street, bro.
Ooh.
That's fucking insane.
Can you imagine
and
what that must smell like?
I'm not talking melting a little.
Right.
I'm talking this thing is like completely like half
Drooping.
melted.
Right.
Half melted. Liquefied. And yeah, that's got to be fucking horrible. Smelling burning plastic. Ugh. It's almost as bad as smelling burnt hair. Almost.
Shit, I'm just talking about the trash that's in that garbage can rotting in those temperatures.
No way. Fucking ridiculous. The recent rate of sea level rise has nearly tripled.
Yay.
Compared to 1901 to 1971.
Right. Like
tripled.
The big thing on this is like, yes, climates change. Like we expect that to happen. The big issue is that and why we can say with what the IPCC report says 90% certainty that this change is man-made is that this is the fastest, most dramatic change in temperature that has been ever seen in history.
Ever.
And when we say ever seen, we can say that with some degree of confidence because they do have some means to be able to measure what global temperatures were doing at times before we started recording that.
Right. If you've seen The Day After Tomorrow, I believe they pull ice cores.
They pull ice
stuff
cores
like that to see.
They fucking measure tree rings.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's shit that they do where they can look at things that are happening since we've started measuring and use that as a base point and then look at what happened or look at what's happening from things before that and use that base point that we've established to kind of make an educated guess. Of course, it's not going to be perfect, but we can make an educated guess of what kind of things have happened to prior to when we started recording.
Exactly.
Based off of seeing what we see now and then applying that to what we see from then.
Because science, yo.
Yo.
It is virtually certain that hot extremes, including heat waves, have become more frequent and more intense since the 1950s, while cold events have become less frequent and less severe. I don't know if you noticed, but we had a really mild winter.
We had a really mild winter this time.
Really mild winter this time around.
In fact, the only time that we haven't had a mild winter in recent history is when the destabilizing polar vortex of the fucking North Pole starts going all wonky and we start getting like blasts of Arctic air shooting at us, dropping things down fucking 20 degrees from where it would normally be, but otherwise would be relatively mild winter.
Right. Yep. And the report also goes into the future impacts. I mean, we're looking at temperatures reaching. Temperatures will reach 1.5 degrees Celsius above 1850 to 1900 levels by 2040 under all emissions scenarios. All emission scenarios. So even if we do everything we're supposed to,
even if we were to cut all of our emissions and hit our targets to
now,
where we wanted to
like
be
dead stop
right now,
dead stop, cold fucking turkey, we're still going up 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2040.
And keep in mind that 1.5 benchmark was the benchmark of we'd really like to keep it at this point, because that's the one where the least amount of disasters break out.
Yeah.
That's not totally mitigates all the disasters. That's the one where the level of disasters that are like weather-based and climate-based disasters that we end up getting happen infrequently enough that we as a society can manage them.
Right. And I don't know if you guys noticed, like we don't really get tornadoes very much here in Michigan. I think we've had maybe less than 10 actual scares in my entire life. And we've had like 3 in the last 2 months here.
Yeah.
And one of them dropped down like 10 miles from my fucking house in the city.
Wow.
Like, we're not in fucking Kansas and Tornado Alley here.
Sure.
Like, we're up here in Michigan where that shit doesn't happen. Well, it's happening.
Right.
Like, and I don't know if you guys know this, right? Humans have stupidly tried to control the weather before. No. When weather happens, when natural disasters happen, you get the fuck out of the way because there's nothing we can do about it. You can run. That's it. But, I mean, if shit goes bad, we're fucked. There's nothing we can do. We're all going to die, probably slowly, probably painfully. It's not going to be quick.
Well,
like,
you know, John, on the plus side, you and I will probably like start seeing like crazy weather popping off later and later in our lives,
True.
but otherwise be okay. It's our kids.
that's our kids.
It's our kids that are
Yep.
going to die.
And honestly, I think about that. And did you see the Family Guy episode where Brian finds his long lost son?
Maybe.
And they start talking about, oh, well, what happens if he does, if he gets hit by a car, and Brian's like, oh no, you can't even talk about that. That's not okay. Blah, blah, blah. After he's been a father for like a day.
Right. Sure.
Right. So I start thinking about this stuff. I read articles like this and I immediately go to, what is my son going to do?
Right.
What am I leaving for my grandchildren?
Right.
Because like if my son survives, that's cool. My grandchildren are still they're gonna face the brunt of this.
I mean, our descendants are going to be facing the consequences of this for like the next 1,000 years, even if we fix everything right now.
All right. What's that?
So 3021, if we were to fix things right now, will be the time that our descendants are like, oh, we're finally past the climate crisis.
Yep. What's that old adage? The sins of the father atoned by the son. Well, there's a lot of fucking sinning going on here, and it's been that way for a while. Let's see. The Arctic is likely to be practically ice-free in September at least once before 2050 in all scenarios assessed. The Arctic is going to be ice-free in September.
You know what's really shitty about this, John? You know what the big thing that is the consequence of this that our governments are dealing with as far as that bit of information right now?
What's that?
They're not even concerned about it as an environmental problem. They're concerned about it of who is going to get the shipping rights through that area that's now opened up. Who is going to dominate that area for moving product on oil-guzzling tankers? Is it going to be the U.S.? Is it going to be Russia? Who's going to do the shipping and have control of those shipping lanes? That is what our governments are concerned about with that right now.
Yeah, because it's not their job to take care of the people. It's their job to pad their pockets. There will be an increasing occurrence of some extreme events unprecedented in historical record, even at warming of 1.5 Celsius. We touched on that a little bit. Extreme sea level events that occurred once a century in the recent past are projected to occur at least once annually at more than half of tidal gauge locations by 2100. So
that's if we keep it at 1.5 Celsius.
If we keep it at 1.5.
If we keep it at plus 1.5 Celsius, weather events that happen once a century are going to be happening once a year.
Yep, once a year.
And that is what I mean when I'm saying that at least they'll be infrequently enough that we can still, as a society, cope with them. Can you imagine if something that is a once a century event goes from happening to once a year to twice a year to 3 times a year to 4 times a year? Like this is when the counter argument against fixing this climate shit is it's going to fuck up the economy. Like, let's get down to brass tacks on the economy. You know what else is going to fuck up the economy? Ruining everything once a year instead of once a century.
You know what's going to fuck the U.S. economy? A fucking 100-foot tidal wave hitting the East Coast. That's going to really fuck things up. There'll be likely increases in fire weather in most regions. How many times do we hear about fire I mean, I bet you parts of California are still on fucking fire.
Yeah,
I don't think they ever stopped being on fire.
Checking our correspondence in Australia. Hey, mate, we're still on fire here.
Right. That wasn't bad.
I think it was horrible. I think any Australian will tell you that it was horrible.
I can't. Australian is one of the accents I cannot do. So I mean, respect to those that can do better than me.
Fair. Okay, I'll take that.
So let's dive into who's most at fault for this, because some would like you to believe that we as people need to lower our emissions, and that's true, right? We as people can be doing more.
Sure,
we could be recycling. We
could do better.
We could be ride sharing. We could be we could be driving less. We could be driving better, safer cars. But that's not going to put a dent in the problem,
right?
If everybody in the world, everybody decided to start driving an electric car tomorrow and went solar tomorrow, guess what? It's still not going to put a dent in the problem.
Right.
Because the consumers aren't the fucking problem.
Right.
So the top 5 countries that are most at fault here: China.
Which,
who's surprised?
Asterisk. I'll say asterisk on that one. And I don't have any qualms with saying asterisk on that one. The reason that I say asterisk on that one is because where we're talking about the consumer being the problem, right, is the vast majority of the products being made in China that are contributing to their pollution load are being sold in Western countries.
How about that?
Right. So we have offshored some of our pollution so that we can blame it on China, while still taking on the end product that is the source of that pollution in the first place.
I was just talking to my father just 2 days ago about climate change, because I have been knee deep in research since we decided to do this week. Right. And his first response when I told him how much, how we're number 2 on the list, because guess what? We're number 2. Yep. And asterisk, because it's probably number 1 if you factor in the stuff that we get from China.
Right.
But I told him we're number 2. His first response is, "Oh, well, we're not the worst." Like, okay, that doesn't make it okay.
We have a population that's like 1/5 or 1/6 of China's population.
Right.
And we are second in pollution, not counting how much of our pollution is actually offshore to China's shores.
Yeah, right. By the numbers, I believe we produce a little more than half of what China does.
Yeah. And
we have 1/5 of their population.
Right.
And most of the shit that they're emitting, well, I don't know if we could say most comfortably, but I'd be willing to say at least 51% probably is coming to us anyway. Right. So, I mean, crunch the numbers, people. The U.S. could very easily be number 1. We also have India. Most of the there's
asterisk for the exact same reason as China. Same reason.
Right. And then we got Russia and Japan round out the top 5 countries. That is where most of the emissions are coming from. And don't worry, in true Deviance welcome fashion, we're going to cite all of our sources. You can check all the stuff on this. I got all the citations right here. They'll be in the show notes. Feel free to look. Please do. But there was a really interesting thing that I found that Cel kind of cued me in on this week. If you were to take all the countries in the world, how many countries we got in the world? 195.
195.
195 countries in the world. If you were to take 195 countries in the world and rank them in terms of emissions, I'm going to add 196th country, right? Because right there at number 55 in 2017, according to the statistic I have, the U.S. military. Not a country. Not a whole country.
Right. Not a whole ass country.
Just our military would rank number 55.
By itself.
More than in 2017, it produced more emissions than Sweden. The country of Sweden and or Switzerland, which are industrialized nations. They're not third world countries by any stretch. Right. And the U.S. military blew them out of the water in emissions.
Right. The U.S. military by itself is in the top 30%. If we're doing this by country, right? Top 30% polluters.
Those listeners we have in the United States, this on us, okay? This, sure, China may produce more on paper, right? This is on us. We need to do a better fucking job in this country across the goddamn board. And we have numbers to back it up. It's not like we're just spouting opinions here. This is fact. And I will cite my sources. Check it out. Show it to your friends. All of them. Please. We don't have time to fuck around with whether or not this is a hoax anymore.
Right.
We don't have time. That time has long since passed.
Long past. We cannot kick the can down the road on this anymore.
The day after tomorrow might just be fucking tomorrow. Like at any time now. We are running real close. According to BP's statistical review of world energy records, the U.S. military produced...
This is BP.
Yeah.
Right? British
BP.
Petroleum.
Yep. BP.
Like the gas company.
Yep.
British Petroleum. So this is a source more than likely biased to be as completely conservative on this as somebody who has a vested financial interest in oil can be.
Yep.
Okay.
According to them,
Just clarifying.
the U.S. in 2017 produced more greenhouse gases than Morocco, Peru, Hungary, Finland, New Zealand, and Norway. Countries.
Whole ass countries.
It would rank number 55 out of 196 if it were listed as a country.
The U.S. military.
The U.S. military. And the U.S., number 2.
Yeah.
Asterisk. We're fucking number 1, guys. This is almost entirely our fault. Almost entirely. If we would get our shit together, right, we wouldn't have nearly this kind of issue. We'd certainly be buying a hell of a lot more time. Industries that are most at fault. Transportation, because gas, right? Because fossil fuel.
Right.
Electricity, also because fossil fuel.
Right. Coal.
Right.
Coal.
Why are we still mining for coal?
Coal.
Why? Oh, no. We'll get to that. Never mind. I'll answer that question for you.
Coal and oil.
Yeah.
Coal and oil.
Industry. Because energy. And also because chemical reactions and things like that they're using. Right. And then we've got commercial and I'm sorry. Let me give you the numbers for these. Transportation amounts to about, this is as of 2019, according to the EPA. Transportation is about 29% of emissions.
So this is just the U.S.'s emissions at this point then, if we're talking about the EPA doing the work on this one?
Yep. This is total U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by economic sector. Okay. So transportation is about 29%.
29%.
Electricity, 25%.
Okay.
Industry, 23%. Notice I haven't mentioned residential yet. Residential, 13%.
This is if you turn off all of your lights and turn down your air conditioning or turn up your air conditioning.
If you do everything that the oil companies are saying, if we do, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All that. If you do everything, 13%. 13%, which is a good number.
Sure.
Which is a good number. And I think everybody should strive to do that where they can.
And to be fair, some of that 29% for transportation, we could cut into some of that too if we had good, robust public transportation.
Right.
Or if we were designed in such a way, like if our cities were designed in such a way that people could live close to their workplace so that they could just bike into work.
How about
or
that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
That is something that would be a way to do that. But we don't have that because this country was lobbied by the automotive industry to be built in such a way
right here in Detroit
that people had to buy cars.
That's right.
You can look that up too.
Land and forestry, number 12. I have my own bone to pick with that.
Sure.
And agriculture, 10%. But I would argue agriculture,
that's one
I'm okay to bite that 10% because we need to fucking eat.
Yeah. I'm willing to bite that one.
If we could get rid of the other 90%, I'm totally good with agriculture.
Sure.
Totally okay with it.
And we don't even have to get rid of the 90%. That's the big thing about it, right? Like, in terms of getting us to a point where we're in a safe zone, we need to cut off 70% of our emissions. And like globally speaking, we need to cut off like 70% of our emissions.
Right.
And that 70% could be taken care of. Granted, this isn't taking into account like the real ass fucking economic disaster that this would cause, right? But if we were to turn off the lights on the U.S. military and the top 100 most polluting companies,
which we're coming to,
if we did that, we could solve the environmental impact of this literally overnight. Now, that's not to say that the things that those companies produce are necessary and we have to actually find a real solution that's not just turning off the lights on these companies. We can't cold turkey this shit. But if we could get those 100 companies to reduce their emissions to zero without causing all hell breaking loose in the process, then we could stop all hell breaking loose in the process.
Let's get into those companies.
Oh, boy.
Now, I'm not going to give you all
an exhaustive list.
I'm not going to give you all
What are we doing? Top 10?
I'm going to hit you with the top 10.
Okay.
And I have a link that'll be in the show notes so that anybody can look at all 100 if you like. But we're going to roll through the top 10. Top 10. Number 1.
I'm going to guess GE.
Nope.
Damn it.
People's Republic of China.
That's not a company.
It's government owned. It's a government owned company.
All right, I guess.
Made in China.
Sure.
Sold to U.S.
Yeah.
The former Soviet Union. Same thing. Government owned companies.
Sure, because they were going through a massive industrialization when they actually existed.
Yep.
I can't believe we're calling something that doesn't even exist anymore one of the top polluting companies on this one. Like,
about
that's
that?
Fucking wild. Okay.
Yeah. Saudi Aramco.
Okay.
And then Chevron here in the USA. And then
we held off until
number 4.
Until number 4 before we actually made an appearance, huh?
Unless you add all the things that the People's Republic of China
ships to us, right?
All the time.
All the time.
Asterisk. So
right.
And then
number 5. And really probably a lot of that Saudi Aramco oil.
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming that's an oil company.
So we didn't get in until number 4 with Chevron. But right after that, we got number 5 as well with ExxonMobil.
Cool.
And then we got BP.
Uh-huh.
Right?
So that one's the Brits.
Yep.
Sort of.
Yeah, from the UK. And then you have Gazprom in Russia. The National Iranian Oil Company in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Royal Dutch Shell in the Netherlands.
I'm starting to notice a bit of a trend.
Yeah.
With all of these ones that do still exist that aren't, states.
It's almost like they're all in the same industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the number 10 is Poland, government owned.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah, and number 11 through 90 will be available at the link in the show notes. But let's get back into that. What was that common thread that you noticed by ones that weren't, countries?
They seemed like they were entirely oil and gas.
I think you're right. Oil and gas. Who'd have thought?
Weird.
So let me tell you why I don't think we're going to do anything in enough time. Let me tell you why I think my grandchildren are doomed.
Yeah, we're basically fucked on this one.
A new study shows 1 in 4 members of Congress admits to owning shares in the oil and gas industry. It totals 93 million in shares. That's a lot of money.
Depending on who the shares are. But
True.
Yes.
True. 93 million is a lot of money to me.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It's
As of December 13th, 2019, 134 members of Congress and their spouses own as much as $92.7 million worth of stock in fossil fuels and mutual funds. House members own between roughly 29.5 million and 78.2 million in fossil fuel stocks, while senators have between 3.8 million and 14.5 million invested in oil, gas, and coal interests. Members of Congress generally report the value of the investments in broad ranges, so it's not possible to know exactly how much their stocks are worth. Why do you think it is that we're so dependent on fossil fuel and so resistant towards green energy in this country?
Well, to interject on this one, I'm going to be coming at it from a slightly different angle than you're probably expecting, but I am willing to bet that one of the longest running sitcoms, cartoons, I don't know what you want to call it, has put into your brain an idea of a three-eyed fish and an evil, crotchety man who tells you or creates this subconscious notion that nuclear energy would be the most disastrous thing that we could possibly do. And that, as a general rule, you, and I'm saying you across from me, but probably more collectively you, whoever might listen to this.
You, the listener, are terrified of the notion of a nuclear power plant opening up in your backyard. Nuclear is a scary word.
Nuclear is a scary word.
Fukushima.
Now, let's keep in mind
Chernobyl.
Just some things to pop out there is that nuclear technology now is a lot more advanced than when the Fukushima plant was built and when Chernobyl was built and exploded, right? And also let's keep in mind that The Simpsons, the cartoon, longest running cartoon that I am referencing that has you terrified of nuclear because of Blinky the Fish and Mr.
Homer Simpson is not allowed to work at a fucking nuclear power plant. They background check better than that.
Sure. But let's keep in mind that this show airs on Fox, and who do you think their biggest financial contributors are? What industry do you think they come from?
What is oil, fossil fuel, and coal?
That would be my bet.
Yeah.
Speculating on that one, but that would be my bet.
Yep.
Right.
Were I a betting man?
Right. They are more than willing to lambast nuclear with all of the symbology of ultimate evil over on Fox News.
And we've got I forgot what the movie was. I think it was the Chernobyl Diaries or something like that came out. It was
on HBO or whatever.
It was kind of like a zombie movie, like more like
right.
28 Days Later.
Okay,
like
gotcha.
where you have like the bio zombies as opposed to like a bio virus,
right?
Resident Evil style. But it was fallout from Chernobyl.
Sure.
And these people, I think it was Chernobyl Diaries. But anyway,
probably because the HBO like miniseries on the Chernobyl events itself was just, I believe, called Chernobyl.
You might be right. But it was a movie. It was kind of done like Blair Witch style from a single video camera.
Yeah.
And it was documentary style is what I mean to say.
Right.
It was done documentary style, and these kids, they went in to Chernobyl's site, after the supposed radiation levels were supposed to be safe enough. Right. And there was a little bit there, and they were hanging out and filming some stuff. And then they got attacked by like bio or radiation zombies or whatever.
Cool.
It was this whole thing, but like
very Fallout.
Yeah. So we're creating movies about that stuff too. But like, I feel like we're a little closer to Iron Man, right? I feel like we're a little more advanced than that. And we're getting closer to Tony Stark doing it the right way. Right. Because like Tony Stark used nuclear power too, and it worked real well for him. So like it can be done. And I feel like you're exactly right. The general population hears the word nuclear, and we immediately go to Fat Man and Little Boy, right? So we're like, oh, well,
or Chernobyl, or Fukushima,
exactly,
or any of
the
other
Hiroshima, Fukushima,
nuclear disasters
Chernobyl,
that have ever happened.
Right, nuclear's scary. Everybody dies.
Right. Yes,
everybody dies horribly, painfully, like.
And look, and to be fair, as far as how to deal with the spent nuclear materials, that is a problem that we have to find a solution for. Not trying to say that that's not the case.
But
however,
what's going to make us not find that solution? Not trying.
Not trying. And at the very least, that buys us a lot of time.
Absolutely.
If we could replace our entire fossil fuel industry with nuclear energy overnight, that's not going to happen. But if we could, then the issues that come from nuclear are way less than the issues that we're already dealing with from fossil fuels.
Right. Absolutely.
Not to say that it's a perfect solution, but it is a significantly better solution.
Right. Absolutely. All right. And it seems to me like, based on what we just mentioned, that even if we have the smartest scientists in the world, they're always going to be suppressed by the people making money off the current thing.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if we destroy the future, because it's what's paying for my now.
Right.
And unfortunately, especially in this country, the people who have the power are the people having the money.
Right.
Right? So what do? What can we do? We can reduce our emissions all day long. But like we mentioned previously, 13% is a good number, and everybody should strive for it. But that's 13%. We're still going to die that much faster.
Right.
If we did everything we could, like the oil companies are telling us,
Right.
If you want to be safe, you got to clean up your act. We don't have to do anything. Don't mind the fact that I'm drilling a giant hole in the ground. So what can we do? Have you seen what the infrastructure bill says on climate change?
Oh God. No, I haven't.
Tens of billions of dollars to protect against floods, reduce damage from wildfire, and develop new sources of drinking water.
Okay, so we are allocating billions of dollars into chasing and cleaning up after the problem,
right?
Instead of trying to get ahead of it.
Now it's
cool
on the
That's
prompter.
awesome.
On the prompter, this is an infrastructure bill, not a climate change bill. On the prompter, and that makes sense. They're not wrong, right?
You know what else is infrastructure though? Nuclear power plants are infrastructure.
Yep. But apparently there is supposed to be the prompter alludes to the fact that there might be a climate change specific bill coming soon. But I mean, do you really buy that?
I mean, what it really comes down to, brass tacks at the end of the day, is when we're looking at just the top 10 polluters, right? There are 90 other companies, probably also most of them being oil and gas, that are also the major contributors. I mean, fuck, the U.S. military is the biggest fucking is that number 55 out of 196 countries because of the oil and gas that it uses to move their planes, transport their trucks, power. Oh, actually, I was going to say the power of their submarines, but their submarines are nuclear. So it's the trucks and the planes and the helicopters that are the biggest source of emissions from the U.S. military.
Hey, wait, if our submarines can be nuclear, how come we can't develop that into more stuff being nuclear?
Well, I mean, ultimately, all of our electric cars that we could have could be quote unquote nuclear, because when you plug them into the wall to charge the battery on them, that power could be coming from a nuclear power plant or a geothermal plant or a hydroelectric plant or something that isn't coal and oil.
Right.
So is it itself a nuclear device? No, and we probably don't actually want nuclear devices driving around our streets.
No.
But in terms of where the power ultimately comes from that could be powering that electric car, that could be nuclear. That could have our transportation pollution go from 29 to, I won't say 0, because there's still going to be like environmental damages done from mining and things for all of that stuff, the lithium, et cetera, for the batteries and whatnot. It's not going to drop it down to 0, but it'll stop being in the number 1 spot with 29%.
Mm-hmm.
That is a solution that we could have. Right.
And not to take anything away from you, but that's coming from a guy who's not like university educated. This is not your focus, right? You don't have a master's in nuclear engineering.
Right.
You haven't dedicated your life to learning this stuff, and You're not from the EPA either.
Right.
Right? You have not.
Right. I'm just a guy.
You're
I'm just
a guy.
guy.
You're a guy on a podcast.
Right.
And you came up with an idea.
Right.
What can people who have studied this do if they're not being blocked at every turn by politicians and corporate scumbags that are making money and profiting off of destroying the planet?
That I could go into a whole different off-topic rant on that one.
Maybe we will.
About like basically how the infrastructure of our society, how our society is set up, creates so many blocks to solutions to this stuff, right? Like, just as an off-topic side thing, right? Healthcare being obnoxiously expensive in the United States. Why? Because you have to be rich to be able to become a doctor in the first place, or get some kind of massive scholarships or whatever.
Put yourself in massive debt,
or put yourself in massive
for the
debt
rest of your life.
Imagine if we didn't have that gatekeeping at the education level, and anybody who wanted to be a doctor could become one.
But then the publishers wouldn't be able to sell a new edition of the book with one new page every year and charge full price. The schools wouldn't make all the money on the tuition. What are the CEOs going to eat? What's the board going to do? It's unreasonable.
Yeah.
It's totally unreasonable.
Right.
You can't ask board members to take pay cuts.
The entire structure of our society is designed in such a way to keep us fucked on this.
That wasn't a bad tease. Maybe I should let you go off on that rant. That sounds juicy and like something the people should hear, because we like to make you think here on Deviance Welcome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been Deviance Welcome. You can check out more episodes and get access to the latest everything on our website, volatilepatients.com. Sign up for the mailing list and tell us what kind of topics you'd like to hear. Check out the sock meds if that's your thing, facebook.com/volatilepatientsmusic.
At VOLATYLPATIENCE on Twitter, spelled weird because Twitter did not give us enough characters.
Thanks, Twitter.
And at volatile_patients, spelled normally because Instagram did give us enough characters.
Thank you, Instagram. Check out the Deviance Welcome Facebook group where you can continue the discussion with us. Please jump in. We're waiting. We'll talk to you. And remember to give us a review on Apple. To summarize, the time has run out. We do not have any more time. We need to start getting serious about this. We need to start figuring out what we can do. We need to start putting pressure on these companies.
The companies and the politicians, and we need to reverse our biases against nuclear. That's really our only way out. Our biggest and best way out is we need to get off of the oil and gas, get onto nuclear.
Right.
It's not a perfect solution. I acknowledge that. But it is our best way forward.
It's going to find us time to find a solution. Otherwise, we're just going to die on coal.
Right.
I mean, we either advance or we crumble. And it's really up to us, because the powers that be want to keep making the money. So we have to make it so that they don't make the money if they don't step the fuck up and look out for more than themselves.
And fucking Elon Musk and Bezos are not going to save you. They are looking for their exit strategy.
They've already
not
found
looking to keep you alive.
Right. They're off this bitch. We will see you next week. Say bye to the people, Cel.
Bye, the people.